Hey everybody, I'm really excited about today's episode with co-founder and CEO Shemmy Majewski. In this episode, Shemmy takes us on a journey through his own experience with diabetes and how it fuels his passion for harnessing the power of data science, AI, and machine learning to enhance the lives of those living with diabetes through his company, Diabetes Lab. And if one company wasn't enough, Shemmy tells us about his team of data science experts at D-Labs AI, where they work to help businesses implement machine learning and artificial intelligence to maximize workflow efficiency and discover innovative business models. During our conversation, Shemmy dives into the secrets behind his personal success. He reveals how he skillfully structures his daily routine to prioritize health and achieve peak productivity in leading his companies. Now, you might notice some background noise in this episode as we recorded amidst the bustling atmosphere of Shemmy's location with an open window and a really busy road. So without further ado, I invite you to listen in on my conversation with Shemmy Majewski. All right, welcome to the Building Thinkers podcast. Today, I'm so delighted to be joined by Shemmy Majewski, and we are going to be talking all things AI, machine learning, I think some chat GPT, data science, and Shemmy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to go right into it. I'd love to ask what it is that you build, and we'd love to start with a bit of your story. What brought you to the work that you're doing today, and we'll really dig in from there. So tell us a little bit of your story.
Sure. I think the main core history behind what I'm doing right now is that I have diabetes for over 28 years. And because of this is something that is part of my life probably forever, and also because of my technical background, I was always fascinated if technology can actually help me. So some time ago, I decided to check that and started building a startup that its vision was to help people with diabetes, help them by using the AI to manage their condition more effectively, because probably you know somebody with the diabetes. This is something that affects your life, but a lot of life events are a factor that you need to count in. What you eat, how much you exercise, what kind of glucose level do you have, and I'm particularly fascinated by type 1 diabetes because I have type 1 diabetes. So and because of my physics background and always I was interested in technology, software development, I was curious if we can build AI model that will help make those all calculations for a person with diabetes quicker. So it was the main story, and some time ago we have built a couple of apps for that, but I think the technology was very early. The technology was not mature enough at that time, and we failed also on the funding part. We decided to open up to other opportunities as a more consulting agency in AI, and we are doing that for 9 years now.
Awesome. Congratulations. Okay, so what's the name of your current company?
It's called D-Labs AI.
Okay, and so that's where you're doing this consulting work in businesses using artificial intelligence is it primarily around, and we'll dig into this more, but is it primarily around efficiency and workflow, or is there some specifics within that?
Yeah, so because of the story in the health tech, we obviously decided that one of the core markets that we want to be helpful in is health tech and all the health related startups and companies. But the other markets, the other industries we are interested in is edtech, and that's how I pitched to you on LinkedIn and how we ended up here. And another one is retail because of some projects in our portfolio.
Wonderful. And so, for some of our listeners, AI and all of this it's brand new. It seems like they've heard the term, but there's I find a lack of understanding of what it really is. And one of the purposes of this podcast is that there is profound insight in simplicity. So can you start by helping us, if you were talking to somebody that does not understand AI, like even at the basic level, how do you understand it in your mind, and what maybe it can do for us, just as a starting point?
Yeah, so definitions are always challenging, because when you are in some space, you forget that that the simplicity is very important part of it, of course. So I would describe it, if I can imagine describing it to my 90 years old grandma, I would say that this is some sort of machine or program. Maybe she already knows what the program is. That thanks to mathematics and mimicking some brain basic functions, as far as we understand, can develop algorithm that can, to some extent, understand and mimic the behavior of a person, of a human, to very narrow applications. I would probably start from this sort of definitions, but I agree it's very challenging. In terms of what it can do for us, that especially nowadays when there is a lot of hype around generative AI, large language models, etc. ChatGPT is one of the examples. Midjourney is another one. They're really it's easier to try to find what AI cannot do already for us, cannot help us with, than tell what it can.
Okay, so the sky is the limit, you're saying, on what is possible with leveraging AI. And now let's shift to when you're working with one of your clients on the consulting side of AI, where do you start with maybe a business that comes to you, let's say a small, entrepreneur, or a business that doesn't have a ton of capital, a ton of employees, but they're trying to figure out how to make the most of this. Where's the starting point in that conversation with a business?
Good question. So we always start with around and within the business model, because we have one basic belief that the technology, and AI in particular, should serve two purposes. One purpose is to help people, if that's possible, especially in the health tech sector, and diabetes, which I can dive more in a second. And another thing is that it should not be a technology for the purpose of the technology, but it should help company, if it's a startup, if it's a scale up, or the mature company, should be oriented towards business goals, KPIs we call it. We have an internal process that we call AI KPI growth engine, which basically means that we always start the conversation from the business perspective. What the entrepreneur, what the company would like to achieve, what kind of processes, as an example, would like to increase effectiveness, or especially for startups, what kind of new product and new business models they would like to implement in the market, or disrupt other business models that are existing on that market.
Right. Okay, so it sounds like there's a bit of backwards design here, where you start with the end in mind. What is your goal as the business? What are you wanting to accomplish? And then you help the company by training the AI for what it's supposed to do, and implementing that. Is that kind of the model that y'all are using?
Yeah, so for many years before that, now we have inflection point, as Intel CEO is calling this kind of situations on the market. We have this inflection point in terms of ChatGPT as an example of large language models, and it changed to some extent how we can actually, it lowers the barrier of entering new companies into the AI world. Because before that event, that was a typical approach. We discuss about the business models, we design the KPIs with the customer, Then we checked what kind of data customer have, if the data are enough, and we, based to best of our knowledge, we can build and train machine learning algorithm based on that data. That was a typical project. Now, because of the ChatGPT and all that hype around, we see that because it cannot be applied to every possible applications in the market, but on some markets, for some customers, it lowers the barrier of entering the AI world tremendously. So we help with that as well. It's not like you just take ChatGPT and you can use it straight ahead. There are a lot of pitfalls. There is a way that you can train ChatGPT models based on your data. So there are a lot of things that you should be aware of before implementing it into your business context. But anyway, thanks to that, it lowers these barriers. So this is another we have now new options, I would say, to help customers that, as you asked, don't even have so much capital.
Right. And so that kind of helps to explain too, this, you refer to it as this inflection point, this moment in time where we're seeing so many people talking about AI. Everybody has a course on AI right now. Everybody has a webinar on AI right now. Right? Even people that don't know what it is are still marketing it as that. And so one of the things that we like to ask is, with this idea of there being profound insight in simplicity, what is it? I mean, this question could be very large for this topic, but we'll narrow it down a little bit. What do people overcomplicate when it comes to AI? What's a common misconception that people come in and you could say the sentence stem, if only people knew, what is it within the work that you do?
Yeah, so I think it's something that they need. That's actually the thing you mentioned, that very often people think that they need a lot of capital to build something. When very often, and especially now, even with an existence of ChatGPT, you already have not only big companies like Google trying to build and show their own large language models, but you have a lot of open source communities. You have a lot of options to take something that is already pre-trained and start applying it to your own business. So there is no need very often to have a huge capital to invest in AI to solve a particular problem. You can use not only existing open source models, but you can obviously use the existing APIs and then integrate with things. The different thing is when you would like to build value of your company based on IP rights. This is of course a different discussion then.
Yeah, and one of the things that you put in the notes was this idea that, so there's this common misconception that you were just talking about, that AI integration is this enormous and expensive undertaking. So it's if only people knew that AI can be integrated in incremental steps. And you said starting small and scaling up, then they would find the process less intimidating. Okay, so for, again, my listeners that are at square one with this, but they do have a small business and they don't want to be left behind, and they might be using it. I know a lot of folks that are using it as individuals for their individual workflow, and they're seeing where it's saving them time or things like that. But to me, and this is not my area of expertise, so this is where you can tell me if this is, this is the type of thinking. But would the next kind of incremental step from that individual use be, how can I implement it into my company workflow that involves more than maybe just me and my individual productivity? Does that make sense? What's that incremental step? What's the incremental step for an entrepreneur that wants to, let's maybe take a case study of sorts. Do you have a typical kind of client or customer where you can kind of describe what you did for them?
Yeah, so we have a different customers and the different use cases, but one of the recent ones is that there is a company that is processing a lot of emails, let's say for different purposes, and Obviously, there is a lot of like challenges on the legal side of the AI as well, because you don't want to send to the servers that you don't know where are some private data of your customers, etc. But so there are other steps possible. But in a nutshell, we always start with what we call proof of concept. So take small part of the process of the workflow that you would like to start using AI for, and try to divide it to the smaller steps and see if there is maybe like 90% of the time is taken by some one step in the process maybe. And so as you said in the beginning, I think today like reverse engineer what you're doing at the moment and think about the Pareto, what is the 20% of the thing you can do that is responsible for the 80% of the effect. And start small, start from the proof of concept. So when we are speaking with the customers, we always encourage them not to go deep in the big project. Start with the proof of concept, start with something that will show you even locally, even on your local computer, without building around the interface, spending time on the designs, etc., that it will really work. And it might be everything. Just set a KPI that will running locally on some part of the data will prove that it's worth investing in the next steps or the bigger project.
Okay, so that's got me thinking. One way I would think about it, even within my own business, might be if there's something that I can take down to all those bite-sized steps, and let's say train a virtual assistant like an actual person. Like if I were planning to break down like the documentation I would provide for that person, I could take those same concepts and look and see, is this something that actually AI could support me in some percentage of this task that I was about to offload to training a virtual assistant, person?
Yeah, so we actually touched a very interesting subject, because thanks to what's going on with the ChatGPT, we are checking, how much is possible in terms of teaching it something that you mentioned, like being even a virtual assistant. So we have an internal project run that we are checking if ChatGPT can learn the way of how a particular person is writing content or is speaking in terms of the voice, the narrative. So this is very interesting thing, and yes, based to what we now know, you can train it to do so, and we are just at the beginning of probably next generations of new models that OpenAI will release. So yeah, this is one of the options and one of the things of doing it. And another thing along the subject is that we have this. It's actually a Polish project, because some time ago we decided to do to give back to the community, let's say. So some part always we are in our work we are trying to do pro bono, I would say. So we decided to write an ebook some time ago. It will be released next month, with a full landing page and things. We decided to write an ebook with a couple of people outside the company as well, about diabetes, and the group that it was intended for is all parents of the freshly diagnosed people with diabetes kids, the most common situations, or for the person that just was diagnosed and needs some hand to learn about diabetes and things that you need to learn when you're getting diagnosed. There is part about there is a psychological part, how to get along with the condition. That's something that you can learn how to cope with the emotions, etc. And another part is the practical stuff, how to calculate the carbs, how to calculate insulin doses, what is the glucometer, etc. All that stuff, insulin pumps. And as far as I know, in States you have a person that is trained to do that. It's called diabetes educator, as far as I know. And in my country, it's not so popular, and we don't have many people in this position. So we decided now, as a branch of this initiative, to train GPT to create a chat that has extensive knowledge based on what we created in terms of ebook, to have this in the chatbot. And
Wow.
the results might be, that you can, of course, later on you can chat with that from your phone, even being at the hospital, ask about the questions, when you are in the situation that you quickly need to assess some knowledge, you can simply ask the chatbot. So this is another I think cool, from my perspective, example of how it can be used to help people.
Absolutely. What a powerful example of what's coming up for me is the accessibility of that information in a timing that's quick and not dependent on a human. It's empowered by human expertise, because that's how you trained it, from the knowledge, from the research, from accurate information, which I know is key to all of this. But then it is accessible at scale. And so one of the things that stands out to me that's offered within AI from a simple perspective is scaling human knowledge to make it accessible at different entry points for people, which might have a lot of overlap into some conversation around ed tech, which is some of my background, and where I think we got connected is I was an ed tech app co-founder in my early 20s of a product called Infuse Learning. And so I learned all of that backside and learned user experience design and all these things that I didn't know how to do at the time. And man, I wish I had had some of the AI that we have now at that time. Would have saved a lot of time answering support tickets that were the same. However, one of the things that's just making me think is, from your perspective on the ed tech front, what are some of maybe the main opportunities and potential that you see there for the use cases?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a couple of that. I think that the most obvious ones are what Khan Academy is doing. There is this great TED talk from the founder and CEO. Like, the edtech is very broad. Is very broad definition, I would say. Yeah, because on the one hand you have platforms like Coursera, UDX, Khan Academy, etc. On the other hand, you have software solutions for managing students' applications, etc. So it's a very broad market. And by the way, I'm quite surprised that it's not officially yet on the LinkedIn industries list. You cannot find companies that are in the edtech. You can find companies that are in some educational space, but not the particular edtech. What I was driving at is that there are like a lot of opportunities. From the learning perspective, you can really create at scale. You can create different learning paths for different students based on their level of learning, how quick mastery, how quick they can grasp a new knowledge. And it's obvious that we are different people with the different capabilities in the different spaces. So this is one of the obvious things. And long before the hype around the ChatGPT and large language models applications, we have been trying to advise on some other startups how you can leverage AI many years ago to adjust the learning path to the different level of students. Another examples are there is a big opportunity within the market of how people are looking for a new next level of their educational path if they want to apply to some university, schools, etc. And you have a problem that there is so much opportunities that you need to spend hours to understand, to learn about each opportunity. So building something that can advise you based on the knowledge about yourself and what you like, what you dislike, what you're good at, etc., can even advise you, be your career advisory bot that will help you set up a new next level, or advise you, okay, maybe it's better to go first to this school or do this online course. course before you go to this university, etc. So there are like a lot of options in my opinion in that space.
Yeah, I think it's really fascinating. I think that some of the ability for the learning feedback, like when a student responds to a question, and the ability for different responses to the student response based on what they got right or wrong, to me, there's a ton of power there in that real time feedback in a lot of our different subject areas. In language learning, I've seen this with the evolution of Duolingo, and my own 5-year-old has used just the English version of it as he's now, starting to read, and it gives him feedback. He'll read the word out loud, and it will basically turn green if he decoded each of those letters correctly and did the blends and all of that. So that to me, I've watched that evolve in my own household as some of those apps are taking that into consideration. And I know Khan Academy has been onto it for a long time and really embedding it in very thoughtful ways. And one of the other things that was making me think about is for my own kids, I built this, I called it a summer learning blueprint, because during the summer they're with my mother-in-law downstairs, and to avoid chaos, they need some structure. And so I made this learning blueprint for them where they have certain things they have to do during the week, and at the end of the week, they may not have this particular item where you are, but it's called croc charms, and they're like these little rubber icons that go on their shoes. It's like flare or like a pin, kind of. Okay, anyway, so they get those when they progress through. But my Chat GPT use case came in here because I wanted to make 12 weeks of writing prompts for them. They have to do one writing prompt a week in their little journals. But I wanted to make it personalized for the things that they're interested in. So I fed Chat GPT, okay, this is the age of my kids. These are the things that they're interested in. Can you make me 12 weeks of writing prompts, one per week? And it came back with, I ended up using about 10 out of the 12 prompts just exactly as they were, and made some small adjustments to the other ones. And I was pretty impressed with that. So I thought in my use case, it was really helpful. And I love that you can also get more specific. I use it oftentimes for some of my clients in research. And I will say, use only these sources, these peer-reviewed sources or these highly vetted sources as a starting point. And oftentimes it has expedited narrowing down research for a particular project. So those are some of the ways I've been using it. I don't know. Would you give me any feedback on those use cases from your perspective?
Yeah, I think that's great. And you see, it's like it really the barrier of entering the and using AI at the it wouldn't be even worth to hire the big agency to implement AI for that, and you can already do that. And so this is exactly what I was driving at, and why I'm so fascinated, because some time ago we had to, that's another example. And also the super cool fact is that you can use it in the different languages. Of course, the English ability of ChatGPT is the best, but still it's very good at the other languages as well. And one of the examples from the couple of weeks back was that my girlfriend had to write some application letter because, long story short, she has a dancing studio. She's a dance instructor, so she needs a new place for the school. So she needed to write some application company that was putting on the market the place that she could use. And we just used, it was 15 minutes on our vacation time that we used, a couple of prompts, what we need, etc. Just write me an application letter, and we send it. And we ended up in the meeting, so it worked. And it was like we saved a couple of hours of figuring out how to write it in a very well formal language, especially for the older people that were behind that entity. So as you see, it's like you can start using it even if you're a person from not a software industry. You can start benefiting from what's going on with AI at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the helpful mindsets that I read somewhere early on and then just started thinking about as I was playing with it is to think of it as a colleague. And in the same way you might ask a colleague something on Slack, think of it, and giving it a identity is helpful. So sometimes I'll say, be a social media manager, and here is my draft of my podcast description. And then I send it there and it might refine it. And sometimes it's too like clickbaity and I'm like, sometimes I'll say back to it, I'll say, that's a great start. Now, can you take out the clickbait and have it sound more professional? And then I go do another run of it, And so I'm learning too what feedback it needs in order to get closer to what I want, and that it's not a just copy paste right from it, but it's a how do you go from the blank page to using outlines or wherever it is for you. And you just made me think of something. I am a bit of a recovering perfectionist, and so it has really helped me to just get started on things. For example, I am building out my own course called Unlimited, Building a Modern Learning Habit. And in that course, I've built a prototype and I've tested it with some folks in a group called the L&D Shakers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this community, but it's all people in learning and development it's an international group and it's amazing. Anyway, so I had folks come from that to try it out. And I was stuck for a long time on like basically the landing page that described, it's kind of like the sales page of what it is. And finally, I just put a couple bullets there into ChatGPT to just get something out. And then there I was, like off and running, and was able to refine it and get what I wanted and get that out the door. And so for me, in the areas in particular, digital marketing is not my background. Writing copy, like I've written big, strategic consulting papers for my clients, but that's very different, 40-page research papers, very different than writing advertising, marketing copy. So that's been an area where I've really leaned on learning there and listening to, copy that I feel good about before I play with that. So that's another spot I've tried it out.
I also tried it on this kind of things because you can use it as something that you will rewrite or, adjust to your needs, but it's a good that. And it's just a beginning because it has I don't remember how many parameters that 3.5 or GPT-4 has, but still, it's just a beginning. We are just a couple of months with that, and it's already helping a lot. So just imagine what will happen in the next years with that. Yeah.
I know, it's going to be wild to see. Okay, Shemmy, I want to shift a little bit to habits and productivity. You have, so I love the notes that you have around this. I can see behind you, you have a book about habits. I get the instinct that you are highly structured, highly motivated, and selfishly, this is an area that I'm always working on. So I want to hear your thoughts on what does a typical day look like? What have you learned? Anything around your habits?
Sure. So yeah, that's that's interesting topic because the book behind me is High Performing Habits. My co-founder gave me that book saying, read it if you like, but my opinion is that you are so much high performing that it will not change anything in your case. So I read it couple of pages and it's waiting for a better time. Okay, maybe I will start from the beginning. Many years back, I was very curious about the meditation. I found that it's very beneficial to my to my brain. And I tried going to retreats. I started from the Headspace app. It was a great way to start. Do you know the Headspace app? Yeah. So I tried from that, and I was very much interested to learning more. I think at that time I made every possible lesson in the Headspace app at that time. And later on I met a couple of people that were into the Vipassana meditation technique. It's something from Burma, I recall. And it's quite popular at the moment. There are a lot of places when you can learn that in the world. And how it works, it's free of charge. You can just apply to go there, and you can learn there how to meditate in that technique, which is totally not connected to any religion. It's purely focused on the technique of meditation. And there are like things that you need to sacrifice, because you need to go there for, as I remember, for the 12 days, and the 10 days you are in total silence, meaning that you have to give away your phone, but the point is not to be distracted. And for the 10 days you can learn the technique and really, sacrifice yourself to learning it. And there another thing is that you need to decide that you will not speak to anyone. The only person you can speak to is your teacher, is your meditation teacher. So you don't speak with other participants, etc. So I went to this type of thing twice, and I learned how to meditate there with that technique. So this is something I find highly beneficial in my day. To admit, it's not like I always do it, but I try to find at least 20 minutes of this practice. And in my case, another thing is sport. So I'm a very active person, and especially now when there is a good weather, my typical day starts from I'm taking a bike, I'm going for a couple of kilometers to the gym, then I'm doing some the strength training there for 1 hour, then half an hour of jogging and getting back on the bike. And this is how I typically start my day. And especially that we are a Polish company, but we work with an international customer base, so very often I have a calls like now. It's almost half past 9 in my at my place, and so I start the day from the exercising, and I feel I have a lot of energy to go through the day. And later on, I'm in the office. I'm trying to keep, like I say, what is in the calendar is sacred. So I'm trying to have my day very structured, and I use a lot of automation tools to help me keep everything in order, but also to keep me to eat when there is a time to eat. So I have a lunch in the calendar, even I have a dinner in the calendar, etc. So yeah, but this is I'm not sure if it's healthy, just me. People are different, and this is something that works.
I think it's always really fascinating to think about different, the habits. Of course, I'm highly interested in that particular piece, and it sounds like you have really set aside. I just hear a lot of intentionality in that. That you've said, this is what's important to me. This is what's important to health, starting with mental space and physical health. And I think, every book you read on habits and every book you read around productivity will say, of course, those things are important. But I think, and maybe this is an American thing, maybe it's not the same everywhere, but we're like, no, we don't need to do that. We can do our own thing. We can work ourselves constantly and not have any negative effects. But the reality is you can't. We weren't created that way. And so knowing that we do have physical and mental limitations, and not having that as a negative constraint, but actually almost, I like to think of it as a creative constraint to say, therefore, what do I need to prioritize? What's most important to me to make sure I get done so that I can be balanced is something I'm always thinking about. One of the other things, Shemmy, that you put in these notes that I wanted to hit on is, two things. One, you said, in business, I primarily avoid comparing myself to competitors, realizing that others' accomplishments might not tell the whole story is important. I always try to remember that there's often more beneath the surface than we initially perceive. Can you tell me more about that? How did you come to not comparing? Is that an ongoing challenge?
Yes, it is actually ongoing challenge, because we have all of us have some ambitions, and my ambition was, I think I have it on the Facebook even. My ambition was to bring AI to diabetes, and I still think there is a lot of space in that, because I think that if we can send a human to space, we should have something that really help person with diabetes make better decisions, because those bad decisions that you do every day are not even like the bad decision on the intentionally, but sometimes things just doesn't work. As an example, you might have a bad day, not enough awareness to calculate what you should eat or how much insulin to take based on what you are going to eat. And there should be a technology that helps you maybe not avoid at 100% that, but at least help you minimize the wrongdoings. And so this was always my mission, to create something, especially with the lack of access to the medical professionals. I know that, or at least I think I know that states are, they have their own challenges in the health sector, health system. We in Europe and in Poland also have some challenges in that, and it's very hard. A typical medical appointment with a diabetes professional takes 20 minutes. So how much you can learn about the human every 20 minutes, every 3 months. So there should be tools that help our patient or your doctor or both to be more efficient at those meetings and help you do better every day. And this was my mission when I decided to go into the startup space many years back, and I still believe that until I die, I will try to create something on that market, or until there is a cure for diabetes. Because I think everybody has some ambitions, and that long intro to what I wanted to say is that we tend to sometimes we see that there is a company that is doing something, or there is another company building their own insulin pump or their own CGM, and we tend to think based on the just one website that we know all the story and they are so advanced, etc. Maybe they are, maybe they are not, and that's good that there are other companies creating new things. But sometimes I make mistakes as well, and I'm not like crystal clear and perfect person, so I sometimes envy also other successful people, their successes, because I also want to create something and give it to the community. But I try to always remember that you don't know the whole story, just see the surface. And this is something that I also learned from other founder of the bigger company at the moment and with a higher traction. And he told me once, I tend to never look on the competition because it never gives you any good. You will try to think about that, but you never know the story. You don't know how much they struggle and what kind of challenges they have every day. Just keep doing your thing, and if you see that maybe somebody done that already, I would probably try to find something else, because there is, in my case, until there is a cure for diabetes, probably there are a lot of things you can do for that market, and you can have you have an open window and the street going on. You can create maybe the similar product, but with the different features for the different customer segments. So
it's making me think about, I have a sticker that's on my computer that says "There's room for you," and it came from actually a surface pattern design course that I took with Bonnie Christine, and an amazing creative. It was a creative outlet course that I took last year. And I thought that message really resonated with me, that there's room for you. There's nobody else that's had your experiences, your expertise, your exact story that's coming to the table to try to solve whatever it is you're trying to solve. And so in your case, your actual history with diabetes that drew you into it, is such a piece of the puzzle for you, and your passion and your clear desire to give back. And so it's making me also think that 2 episodes back, I talked to my friend Anna Brewster, and she is in the healthcare space in cancer prevention. But that might be an interesting episode and just an interesting contact to know. She works now in the public health policy within Texas in the Houston area. And that episode was very interesting. One of the things we talked about in that episode was that information doesn't change behavior. And so that's where policy from her angle comes in to help support some shifts in practice. I'd love to go to any of your book recommendations, any other input recommendations, and I want to make sure you share where people can find you, and then I'll also put any of the links that you share in the episode description.
Sure, thanks a lot. This is quite interesting conversation. About the books, I was thinking about a couple of the things I read recently or some time back when I was prepping for this episode. I think so. Starting from the Only Paranoid Survive, it's the book I recently read. It's quite old because it was written by the CEO of Intel at the I think at 80s even. And it was super interesting. He was writing about those inflection points, and I didn't know that we have Intel subsidiary here in Gdańsk, in the city where our company is. And I didn't know the fact, as an example, that from that book, that it was really, there was a high probability that Intel wouldn't exist today if they didn't shift and change the course of business. It's more detailed, of course, in the book, but the main idea behind the book is inflection points, and I like to make a connection to things I told in the couple of minutes back, is that those inflection points are something that happens sometimes on the market, and we should always be aware of that. And based on those inflection points, it's really crucial what kind of decisions we decide to make. And I think some sort of an inflection point is now what's going on with the AI. Also because what now the ChatGPT is doing probably will also make some startups will need to pivot, because what's not possible some time ago, now it's possible just by connecting to API of OpenAI and working with the GPT model. Yeah. So this is one of the examples of inflection points. And another book, maybe from the business, was I really enjoyed reading. It is this Flowers for Algernon, and the story behind that is very interesting from the, I think, psychological and how humans can behave and work. Not to spoil too much, it's about the person that has, how do you call it? He's not capable of enough, has a very low IQ, and he gets some sort of treatment that was only tested before on the rat. And after that treatment, he gains a lot of IQ in a very accelerated way. And this book describes his story and how society reacts, how he reacts, how he learns the different things. And it's not only super interesting, but it's I got emotional, I think, when I was reading that. So very, very nice book. It's quite old novel. It's from the 70s, so I believe, yeah.
Ooh, I like it.
So maybe two things I can recommend from the different, spaces.
Wow. Shemmy, thank you so much for this conversation. It's so fascinating, and I'm so excited to see what you all continue to do with your company, with the impact you're making for other companies that are trying to implement AI and understand it better and really make things work. We'll make sure we put all of the links in our episode description, and I'm excited to stay connected and hear how it all goes. So thank you so much. Thanks so much for listening to the Building Thinkers podcast. Now we have more ways than ever to stay in touch. So go to linktr.ee/buildingthinkers, and you can check out my newsletter, YouTube channel, and learn about my upcoming learning experience, Unlimited, Building a Modern Learning Habit. And if you're interested in that, you can join the waitlist to be the first to know when it's ready for a beta launch with a limited size group. And in the meantime, remember, there's no limit to what you can learn. And thanks for making the Building Thinkers podcast part of your modern learning habit.